Welcome back to your Wednesday edition of the Quick Bricks NBA DFS podcast, brought to you by the good guys over at Fantasy Degens, of course. As always, I'm Sean Mitchell at smitchell17 on the Twitter machine. It is Wednesday, the 6th of November. We have a 11-game slate for today, the biggest one of the week. Nice big old slate to choose from. As always, we'll get started with the games, talk about spreads, total, a little bit about the teams that have got the best pace in these games, just kind of chat about it for a second. 4 games without a line, which kind of makes it a little bit harder. But either way, Knicks at the Pistons. We don't have a line on this one. The Pistons have a slew of people out right now. Derrick Rose, Reggie Jackson, Tim Frazier. Looks like, Blake Griffin's still not returning. The Knicks are the Knicks. But obviously we'll be waiting on the line for that one because that's a game we obviously want to play. A lot of no defense on either side of the ball there. And both teams give up a lot of fantasy points to certain respective spots. So that's one we'll be looking to target. Wizards at the Pacers. Pacers on a back-to-back here. No line on this one. Obviously Sabonis, Miles Turner. The Pacers are missing some folks. Not so much the Wizards. Next game, we have the Bulls going to Atlanta to play the Hawks. Looks like we're waiting on some news on this one. Obviously, I don't know if they're waiting to see if Trey's going to play a back-to-back. He played 30 minutes last night. He was limited to 30 minutes, played every single one of them. Still put up 50 fantasy points. I guess, waiting to see. John Collins is out. We know that. Suspension. Excuse me. Both of these teams are on a back-to-back. The Bulls played the Lakers last night. I don't think anybody got injured in that game, so not that I can see and not that I just saw in my research. So kind of weird on that line, I guess, maybe seeing if Trey's playing again. Next game, we have the Golden State Warriors traveling to Houston to play the Rockets. I guess they're waiting to see if D'Angelo's playing. It looks like he's been out again, missing his second or third game with that ankle injury. Be one to watch as well. Obviously, the Rockets will probably going to steamroll them here at home, but then again, the Rockets don't play defense, so it's kind of one of those that, but at the same time, you have the Rockets here who are second in pace in terms of pace in the NBA at the moment, and then you have Golden State who's 14th. Obviously, he's going to play at a faster pace here for the Rockets, so pace-up game. Some of those Golden State values will definitely come into play. Kings at the Raptors. It looks like we have Toronto a minus 8.5 point home favorite here with a total of 219. Kings don't play a whole lot of defense. Some Raptors obviously will be in play. T-Wolves at the Grizzlies. Here's your fastest pace of the game on the whole board. T-Wolves first in pace in the NBA right now. Memphis fourth. So very interesting game. It doesn't even have the highest total on the board that at the moment right now. That one goes to the Bucks and the Clippers, but this game has everything that you need to have a very, very fast-paced game. Both teams averaging lots of possessions, ranked in the top, obviously top 5 or so in total number of possessions per team. So this game obviously ought to be a good one, and it should be a good one for fantasy. 224 on the total, Minnesota minus 4.5 here on the road in Memphis. Next game, we have the Magic versus the Mavericks. Magic going into Dallas to play the Mavericks. Mavericks are a 7.5 point home favorite here with a 207 total. Low one again. Magic on a back-to-back. So I would not be surprised if the Mavericks get out to a pretty quick lead. Orlando has not looked good lately, so the Mavericks have. The next game, we have the 76ers at the Utah Jazz. Utah minus 2 here at home. 210. Obviously, Joel Embiid is back. I forgot to mention that for for Minnesota against Memphis. Karl Anthony Towns making his return as well. Sixers fastest. I can't even talk. 76ers are 5th fastest pace right now in the NBA, which I thought was pretty surprising. I didn't know they were that fast. But you also have Utah, who's 29th. Looks like they're kind of going back to their old ways here with the grind, slow down the game, slow down the pace, grindhouse type deal, defense. So not a huge fan of that game as well. I mean, I usually hate targeting any kind of Jazz games, and now it looks like they're slowing down again. So And then finally, you have the Bucks at the Clippers. Milwaukee minus 3.5. The Clippers have already announced Kawhi is out. And the spread is only 3.5 for Milwaukee here. That seems a little fishy to me, right? I really, really, really like Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell in this game. Bucks 7th in terms of pace. LA Clippers 24th. So you got a speed up spot here again for the Clippers as well, which is why I kind of like the other side. Obviously, Giannis without Kawhi, I mean, that's just easy. But I think you can take a small piece of this game, just like I just mentioned, and it'll be pretty fire. So that's your rundown of the games. Again, we'll be waiting on some lines there, waiting to see on some injury news. Lots to see. So let's go ahead and jump right into the point guard spot. My top point guard here, of course, is Luka. He's had back-to-back 70-point fantasy point games. He's 9.8 tonight on DraftKings. Orlando's on a back-to-back. Again, I don't really know how much I'll have of Luka for the simple fact that they are playing on a back-to-back, and this is in Dallas, and it's just not a good spot for Orlando. Dallas has been playing really well, so I might look to fade Luka or have a very, very small amount. Russell Westbrook, he had a good little night's rest, so now he's 9.4. 50.5 or more in all but, his last game where he had a complete dud. Let's see here. Golden State's allowing the 7th most fantasy points to the point guard spot. I think they're even worse whenever DAR is playing. They've been starting the rookie Kyle Bowman there at point guard while DAR is out. So it'll be interesting to see if Russell plays. If D'Angelo Russell plays, then I will absolutely be on Russell. Even if he doesn't, I will probably, I don't know. It's going to be tough. You want to say that the Rockets obviously ought to come out and just blow the doors off of them here at home. But, again, we know that the Rockets don't play a whole lot of D. So, Westbrook, I believe he'll be trying to go for 70 tonight. I mean, he had a 25 fantasy point game in his last game before he had his night off. So, 9.4, I think you're getting a good price on Russell Westbrook tonight. Trae Young at 9-1. Played 30 minutes last night in his return. Played against San Antonio at home. 50.5 fantasy points. Tonight he gets an even worse matchup. I say worse. He gets a better matchup with Chicago, who can't guards really well. And he's at home again. I guess that's maybe why this game doesn't have a line. I guess they're going to make sure he's good. Are they going to rest him? Are they going to sit him on this back-to-back? He's a young kid, only his second year in the league, so I wouldn't expect them to. Depends on how that ankle is, I guess. If he plays, though, against Chicago at home, I'm firing him up. I mean, 9-1 is a big number, but we saw he's fine, obviously. Going down a little bit, Kyle Lowry at 8-4, 40.8 fantasy points or more in all 3 of his home games so far this year. He gets a not very good defensive Sacramento team at home here. Sacramento's allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the point guard spot. He's been absolutely crushing at home. I will absolutely be looking to play some Kyle Lowry. Malcolm Brogdon on a back-to-back, 8.1, 45.8 last night, 45.8 or more fantasy points in all but one game so far. Washington allowing the 3rd most fantasy points to the point guard spot. I mean, Brogdon's been crushing it. You can't take that away from him. He gets another great matchup tonight against Washington. Could be without Sabonis and Miles Turner once again. I don't think you can really afford to fade Brogdon again. Ja Morant here is in a good spot, 7.1K. Minnesota, again, allowing the 9th most fantasy points to the point guard spot. We've been fading the Minnesota point guard spot for a while now. Jeff Teague's actually even questionable. So I think even Shabazz Napier is even out. So I don't know who they're going to play at point guard. If Teague doesn't go, they might have to run Wiggins out there at point guard or something. But either way, Ja Morant here at home, 7-1. Totally loving that price on him. You got the fastest pace game here, like I talked about before. And he's also put up back-to-back 39.3 fantasy point games in his last 2. So getting close to 40 fantasy points for 7K, I'm a big fan. So Ja Morant definitely. RJ Barrett at 6.7, 39 or more minutes in his last 3 or 4 games. We know Detroit's not very good against the point guard or the guard spot at all. 34.8 more fantasy points in his last 3 or 4 games. They're basically throwing him out there and saying, go for it. I mean, he's playing massive amounts of minutes. he's their rookie stud. R.J. Barrett needs to be owned. I mean, you just need to roster him. He's going to play. He gets a great matchup against Detroit. Detroit's hurting. Like I said, they hardly have any guards at the time. I think Bruce Brown's been their starting point guard. And he's trash on defense. Luke Kennard's been playing really well. But either way, R.J. Barrett here against Detroit, I'm a big fan. Kyle Bowman at 5'9". He's been playing really well the last two games, subbing in for D'Angelo Russell. He's put up 34.8 and 35 fantasy points in those last two. Faces a Houston team that doesn't play defense. This is his first road game though. His last two have been on in Golden State. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how he does on the road here. But still yet, right there, a smidge under 6K. If he's going to start and get those 35, 34 minutes a game, D'Angelo's out. I think you kind of got to look at him. My punt here is a guy that came alive again last night. Hopefully it means that, a positive sign of things to come is Kobe White here at 3.6. His prices just went down drastically since he's been in a slump. He kind of busted out last night against the Lakers. I don't know if it was because he was playing the Lakers at home. Could have very well been playing LeBron, getting his star shine. 24 minutes, 31.8 fantasy points. But all in all, he gets Atlanta here. He gets Atlanta. So, playing Atlanta defense and against those Atlanta guards, not a whole lot of great defense there. So 3.6 if you want to punt Kobe White. We know Trae Young doesn't play a whole lot of defense, so totally fine with Kobe White there. So going over to the shooting guard spot. James Harden at 11-2. I don't really have to extend any more on that. Golden State allowing the 8th most to the shooting guard spot. I mean, the guy just put up 70-something fantasy points. I know it was without Russell Westbrook. So anyway, I mean, he's pricey. His price just keeps going up. So Zach LaVine at 7-2, 49.3 last night against the Lakers. Atlanta's allowing the 6th most fantasy points to the shooting guard spot. It's going to be a decently fast-paced game with the Bulls there in Atlanta. So I'm totally fine with Zach LaVine at 7-2. Jeremy Lamb, once again, at 6'9". Didn't exactly put up the game we thought he was last night. Started off real hot, started off great, and still I think he only put up like 26 fantasy points. Not exactly what you want out of a 6'6" price range, 6.9 tonight. However, Washington is allowing the most fantasy points to the shooting guard spot. Brad Beal does not play a whole lot of defense. So, he's still getting 21% usage on the season. It's a great matchup. He's priced up, obviously, but of course, with no Sabonis, no Miles Turner, they've got to go to somebody. It looks like it's been T.J. Warren. I was all over T.J. Warren last night, but I had none of the other good pieces that I needed to go around him. So anyway, Lamb at 6'9", I think I'm fine with. I'm still thinking on that one. Lou Williams at 6.5. Like I mentioned, his price has gone down a little bit. Still yet, he hasn't had he's had a few bad, shooting nights. He's only been in the mid-20s in the fantasy point range. Excuse me. 6.5K here at home. Again, in a pace-up game here with the Bucks. Totally loving his price at 6.5K and glad that it dropped. 35.5 or more fantasy points in 2 of his 4 home games. And like I said, he's getting this pace-up matchup with the Bucks. Totally fine with Lou. I think he's going to get a massive amount of usage without Kawhi. So Lou is definitely going to be close to a lock button for me. Luke Kennard at 6K has put up 34.3, 35.5 in his last 2. 24 real points in both games. 26.3% usage in his last 2 games. He's taken full advantage of the injuries, the Derrick Rose, the Reggie Jackson, and he's playing well. And of course, he gets a pretty good matchup here with the Knicks. The Knicks also don't play a whole lot of defense. So Kennard here at home, I'm totally fine with at 6K. His price is up, but I'm totally fine with it. I think he's going to continue to play heavy minutes. If Blake Griffin comes back, which he's listed as out right now, so I'm not going to talk about that. Let's go down a little bit further. Dylan Brooks at 4.9, top 30 fantasy points in 2 of his 3 home games so far. We got the fastest pace game here on the board. And he put up 33.8 fantasy points last game against Houston. He's been shooting well lately. Like I said, he's doing pretty well at home, shooting well at home. So you might want to take a shot on him. Troy Brown Jr. at 4.5K, 31 minutes last game, 39.5 fantasy points against Detroit. We know Detroit's bad. First career double-double for him. Could be coming in with a whole slew of confidence now. 115.9 offensive rating. Shot really well. Like I said, grabbed like 10 or 11, 12 rebounds. Again, getting not a great matchup here with the Pacers, but still 4.5K. If he's going to get 30-something minutes at 4.5K, I mean, you kind of got to look at him. Washington doesn't really have a whole lot of of great players over there. So at the low end here, you have Damian Lee for the Golden State Warriors at 4.3K. He's played 25, 27, 29 minutes in his last three, 26, 20, and 30.5 fantasy points. He's there if you want him. Again, with that Golden State value, like I said, against the Rockets, who don't play a lot of defense. Looks like Eric Gordon is questionable or not, as I just saw. So, wanted to throw that out there. Small forward, Giannis, 11-7, no Kawhi. Large total, 237, fast pace. Yeah, I think I would probably tend to go Giannis here over Harden. I just think that it's a better matchup. Not better matchup, but a better game flow probably. Exactly for the simple fact that, the Bucks are at the Clippers here, and the Clippers can more or so probably keep it close for the most part. So Giannis definitely in play. Wiggins at 6.6, over 30 fantasy points in 4 of his last 5. Like I said, 26.3% usage on the season, right behind KAT. KAT is back tonight, but Wiggins was putting up over 30 fantasy points when Anthony Towns was in. So Wiggins at 6.6, I think, is a fair price. Excuse me. Marcus Morris, 5.9, facing his bro here in Detroit. So obviously, he's going to want to beat down bro. So. And not just that. He's put up 42 and 50.8 fantasy points in his last 2 games. He's carrying 23.3% usage in those last 2 games. He's just shooting really well. He's been a beast. He's only 5.9K, still under 6K. His price really hasn't moved a whole bunch. So Marcus Morris absolutely will be in play tonight against the Pistons for sure. TJ Warren at 5.8. Put up 48.5 last night. No Sabonis, no Turner. 16 and 18 field goal attempts in his last 2. He's put up 26 real and 33 real in those 2 games. TJ Warren has been the guy. I was all over him last night. I didn't happen to get the right combinations around him. But TJ Warren absolutely will be in play once again, of course, if both of those are missing. Bruce Brown at 5.3, back-to-back 40-point fantasy games here. 22.8% usage in his last 2. Gets, a good matchup here with the Knicks. I guess I don't know if Frankie Smokes is going to start at the point guard. He only played like 15 minutes last game. I don't really know. Fizdale doesn't really know what he's doing. Doesn't really know his rotations. He said he doesn't know. He hates, trying new rotations because he can't find one he likes. I don't really know. Either way, Bruce Brown, I know he's going to be playing 40 minutes again. So, he was massive chalk last game, and he still came through. Everybody was really pissed off because he didn't do anything in like the whole first quarter, and then all of a sudden he started coming alive. So Bruce Brown, love it, 5.3. Glenn Robinson 3 here, 4.8, 31-plus minutes in his last 2 games. Houston allowing the most fantasy points to the small forward spot. Didn't do a whole real lot last game, but the game before he had like 31 or 32 fantasy points. Part of that Golden State value again. You got to play it. DeAndre Hunter at 4.3, 36 minutes last night. We knew he was probably going to be one of the beneficiaries of the John Collins suspension. Didn't really know he was going to play 36 minutes. Jabari Parker coming in starting now at the 4, so that obviously left DeAndre Hunter in a lot more. He put up 16 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, good for 28.5 fantasy points. Chicago is allowing the 10th most fantasy points to the small forward spot. So DeAndre Hunter at 4.3 will absolutely be in play. Hopefully he gets to see 36 minutes again tonight. He's a young kid. He's a rookie, so, I'm sure he'll see over 30. Excuse me. All right, power forward, Siakam, 8K, 38.8, 48.3, 66.5, all at home. 3 games where he's put up at least 38.5 or more. Playing against the Sacramento defense here at home. I'm really liking that Siakam and Lowry stack against, Sacramento. Two spots that they are not exactly great on defense at. So, especially the point guard spot. Lowry is probably one of my favorite point guard spots. His price. Eric Paschal at 6.5 for Golden State. Once again, his price has gone immensely up. But, Houston's allowing the 10th most fantasy points to the, power forward spot. He's played 35 and 40 minutes in his last two, put up 34.5 and 55.3. Will he be chalky? Probably against the Rockets. Sure, I could see that. I think he was 5.5K last game. His prices went up a whole 1,000. He's been balling. Rui Hachimura, 5.5. Started out really, really hot last game, and then got in a little bit of foul trouble, and then all of a sudden he just kind of quit playing. Still yet, 28 or more. 28 or more in all road games. Sorry, I couldn't even read my old writing. 28 or more in all road games. Indiana, without their bigs. He's had a 21.3% usage rate on the season. Again, the Wizards need scorers. He's one. Just hoping that he can stay out of foul trouble. He really hadn't been in a whole lot of foul trouble, but, still 28 or more in all road games so far this season. He's only 5.5K. He's going to play big minutes. He's a starting power forward, so Rui Hachimura, totally fine with. Harrison Barnes at 5'2", 40 minutes in two of his last three, over 30 fantasy points in his last three. Toronto is allowing the eighth most fantasy power. Goodness God. Toronto is allowing the eighth most fantasy points to the power forward spot. I like him, man. I like Belicia here at 4'9", 26 and 32.3 fantasy points in his last two, 24 more minutes in his last four. I think both of these guys are going to be interesting options. Obviously, I think Belicia, I wish he was going to get 30-something minutes because I think he has more upside. But Barnes is a guy. Obviously, he's getting 40-something minutes a game. And, of course, they're going to probably lean on him a little bit. So Barnes at 5'2", I think that's fairly cheap for 30, over 30 fantasy points in his last three games. Goga for Indiana, likely to get another start here. He's listed as power forward and center on DraftKings. So obviously at 4.2, his price didn't move. Thank you, DraftKings. Actually, I think it kind of went up a little bit, but not much. 32 minutes, 32.3 fantasy points. He gets a lovely matchup with Washington here. So Goga will probably be massive chalk if those two, if Sabonis and Miles Turner sit again. But for good reason. I mean, he should absolutely dominate this matchup. Let's see here. Christian Wood at 3'6", 21 minutes last game, put up 26 fantasy points. The Pistons are still hurting. The guy's a fantasy point per minute monster. He's cheap, worth tournaments. And then going over to the center spot, Drummond, 10.8 versus New York. Over 54 fantasy points in his last four games. The guy's been absolutely crushing. No reason to try to fade him now. He gets a good matchup at home. Karl Anthony Towns at 10K even. Had a nice little 2-game rest there. Gets Memphis at Memphis, fast-paced game. Not exactly the best matchup down there with Valanciunas, but I'm totally fine with it. Towns is going to get his, and I like Towns. I like Towns quite a bit. Capella at 6'4", over 30 fantasy points in all home games. His price went down. He's 6.4K against a Golden State team that I'm not really afraid of at all, obviously. So Clint Capella is probably already going to be a part of the Harden stacks. For good reason, but man, you could probably almost play him as a one-off here. Over 30 fantasy points in all of his home games, playing back at home here against Golden State. If Golden State keeps this mildly close, Capella could play 30 minutes maybe. Yeah, I think I'm fine with it. Montrezl Harrell, like I mentioned, 6.2 fast-paced game here with Milwaukee. Milwaukee allowing the 7th most fantasy points to the center spot, over 30 fantasy points in all of his home games this season, and no Kawhi. So Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell stacks for me all day. And last but not least, Wendell Carter Jr. here, 5.9. Atlanta allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the center spot. He has top 27 fantasy points in his last 4 games. So kind of coming on strong a little bit. Gets a great matchup here with Atlanta, in Atlanta. But nonetheless, 5.9, I think I'm totally fine with some Wendell Carter Jr. All right, so that is it. That'll round out this edition of the Quick Bricks NBA DFS podcast. I'll be flat out honest. I have not even picked a roster monster yet. Let me kind of scan it, see who I really like tonight. To be flat out honest, I haven't. I just kind of went through all my research and was just kind of looking over some people. You guys will know whenever it's posted. How about that? I love the mystery. All right, guys, have a wonderful Wednesday. Enjoy your day, and let's chat later.